you're telling me that software shops all around the world, they've been trying to jam this square peg of the Spotify model into the round hole of org design. What a terrible euphemism, first. And they're trying to do this because they read on a blog post somewhere about a model that didn't exist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's actually a lot worse than that.
Oh, okay.
They organized or reorganized based on a wish list. So Joachim Sunden? Joachim? He literally said that the model was part ambition, part approximation. It's like going to a car show, buying a concept car, and then complaining when it doesn't have an engine. Squad, stripes, girls, goons, I don't know. It was never an actual operating model that a company used to scale and grow.
So then what was it?
Well, let's dig in and find out.
Oh, boy. Welcome back to Arguing Agile. If this is your first time, welcome. I'm product manager Brian Orlando, and this is my co-host, Mr. Om Patel, enterprise business agility consultant to the stars, and the captain of cross-functional collaboration.
Ooh, look at me! I'm a captain now.
I am the captain now. You're messing. You're crossing the wires on the memes here. Okay, so today we're taking the blowtorch to one of the most beloved. Is it beloved? Is it beloved? Org design myths. The org design myths of all time in software development, the Spotify model. So by the end of this episode, hopefully you'll have a sassy understanding, as sassy of an understanding as I have for the Spotify model, and why I consider it vaporware, and why they never actually use. I put the RAW in there, and why they never use the rules as written about the Spotify model. Number one. Number two, what actually drove Spotify's success? When people talk about this model, they attribute Spotify's success, at least partially, to this model. I don't. And then those two things bring up another thing that we should talk about in the podcast: how to spot survivorship bias when evaluating org design and talking about the way orgs are constructed. So that's a cool little side tangent that I like talking about org design. I realize like three of us on the internet like talking about it, but we're going to talk about
who's the third person?
That's right. I don't know. I'm pretty sure they live in Berlin. That's right. It's not a real place. It's just Berlin, I guess. I don't know. And then the real cost of lift and shift thinking, this whole, we can just grab something off the internet, grab the Spotify model off the internet. We watch the video with some animation, and now we can just do that at our organization.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is what to do instead.
It's the model that never was.
It's the model that never was. We're going to talk about the myth versus reality. Let's do a little bit of a step back here and talk about Spotify, the Spotify model. That's right. We're revisiting a topic from podcast 1 or maybe 2. I don't remember.
It was up there, yeah.
I think it was 1
of the early ones.
And that was back when we had a different working agreement. I didn't want to really go hard on Spotify, but today I do. The other thing that I didn't really have in the notes here is why Brian, why this topic? Why do you care about this? I've constantly seen people bring up the Spotify model and talk about the way to split the org and stuff like that. I'm sure you've ran into this way more times than I have.
I certainly have, yeah. Yeah, it's never not topical to talk about this, because you still have people trying to, install the model, right?
Yes.
And hoping for some mythical success.
Pip install Spotify model.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that Spotify underscore? Never mind. It's fine. Hey, Om, what if I told you that the most copied org design in tech history was never actually a working, implemented, functional, operational thing, even by the company whose name is on the placard? The Spotify model, how Spotify sold the world a fantasy that they never used.
They didn't drink their own champagne.
Is that a thing?
Well, apparently if you don't have a dog, that's the analogy.
Oh, I see. So there was Jeremiah Lee, former Spotify product manager. He has a article called Failed #Squad Goals from 2020, in where he says, and I quote, "I learned the famed The famed squad model was only ever aspirational and never fully implemented. There it is. I'm showing you on the screen the little fire and failed squad goals. Spotify doesn't use the Spotify model, and neither should you, by Jeremiah Lee, Sunday, April 19th, 2020. You can read it in French or Portuguese. Before we get into this article, we have to talk the Steel Man.
Steel Man.
That's right, because anybody listening to this is going to say, listen, Spotify, they were transparent with their 2012 seminal paper from 2012. I don't say that very often. It sounds dirty. That's why. And they said, hey, it was just a snapshot. It was just a snapshot of the way we're working. And if that's not good enough, then Brian, isn't the Spotify model good as a North Star? Anything aspirational that's not concrete is good as a North. And now we get into this discussion of academic type of discussions versus real practical discussions.
Yeah.
And I wanted to start there to talk about you're going to get that kind of pushback when we're sitting here going, Spotify never did this. They wrote a paper saying wouldn't it be great if we were organized this way, when they were not organized that way, and then they never got organized that way.
So, we paint the picture as if it's a binary, but actually what happened, I believe, from what I've read is, yes, they didn't implement the model fully, but they started to do bits and pieces of it, right? So they changed the vernacular, first of all, internally with some of their teams, probably not even all the teams, to squads and so forth. But what did they do day in, day out? Nobody knows, unless somebody at Spotify is willing to speak up and say it was just another name for doing the same thing we were doing before. I don't think I don't think we know, right?
Well, that's what
with authority.
That's what the Squad Goals blog. So in this blog, he does talk about working at Spotify. There are some quotes in the article from Anders Iverson, co-author of the Spotify white paper, that he puts here. He quotes, says, when I asked my coworkers why the content was not removed or updated to reflect reality, I never got a good answer. Many people ironically thought the posts were great for recruiting. I no longer work at Spotify, so I'm sharing my experience to set the record straight. The Spotify squad model failed Spotify, and it will fail your company too. Joined the company after it tripled in size to 3,000 people over 18 months. I learned a famed squad model was only ever aspirational and never fully implemented. I witnessed organizational chaos as the company's leaders incrementally transitioned to more traditional management structures. So again, this is a firsthand account. Maybe it got better. I don't know. Maybe, but I'll link this blog in the show notes. It's pretty quick. Maybe that's another Steelman point. Is well, this is just one person's take, But I have more references. I'm just for the sake of this not being a 3-hour podcast on why Brian doesn't like Spotify, I'm keeping the other references to the side.
Sure.
The reason that and he kind of indicated here is Spotify probably knew that touting this model. I mean, they had, if you were around in the 2012 era, 2012 to maybe 2015, this was everywhere.
Sure.
This was and it was touted as a success of business agility, and the people that wrote it, are over here being rock stars and whatnot. So I have a few gripes to express in this section. Is how come no one's out here slowing down the train, the hype train? Spotify's over here using it for recruiting, trying to get the best talent because they got squads and tribes and they got this thing all figured out. Autonomy,
Well, there's got to be somebody benefiting from it for it to not be stopped, right? So, who was that?
That's my big gripe here is the whatever the disclaimers were, they were buried by the hype. Some of which I remember from this day because I was working in this era. So that's part of my hang up here.
Yep.
And aspirational is fine, but you need to control a little bit the damage that this is doing.
Control, Alt, Delete.
Yes. Do you have any experience with seeing people trying to copy the Spotify model?
I have not worked at a company where they tried to do that, but I have read widely about other companies that have tried to do this and maybe succeeded in some regard, but also failed overall.
I don't know. I know a company or two here in town who pretty much copy pasted the Spotify model, and I know people that have worked there, and they say it is a train wreck. And Spotify model is supposed to be like this shining flag of autonomy and like shared purpose.
Yeah.
But this particular company that has implemented the Spotify model is quite literally the opposite of that. Under hood, they're the opposite of that. But their teams are called squads and tribes, so there's Spotify now.
Must be good. So the one example of a company it's a bank. It's a Dutch bank, ING. Mm-hmm. They use this with some success, actually, and it's been written up in the in the media as well. So they did something right, but look, the underlying circumstances there are they already had a culture of collaboration and autonomy. They also had backing from the highest level in the company, right, to go do this reorg. Mm-hmm. So that worked, but pretty much everywhere, including the local company you referred to, they don't have that.
Yeah.
So essentially, all they're doing is installing a new set of jargon to do whatever they were doing before, and that doesn't work.
I think we got enough for category one.
Yeah.
I'm realizing right now that like category one is a lot of like Brian yells at the clouds, to be honest. What I'm taking from this category is that the Spotify model is the business equivalent of like citing Wikipedia when you're in school and your teacher yells at you and tells you that you can't cite Wikipedia because nobody can check the sources like that.
Right.
That's a Spotify model.
Pretty much.
But it says on the internet if there are takeaways here, and there's always takeaways. In case you hear your company or people in your company talking about Spotify model or any models, really. I have 3 questions. Number 1, is this a documented practice or an aspiration? Like, are there like documented cases of this being implemented and studied, or is this something that somebody just made up?
Is it real or is it Memorex?
Right. Memorex. Oh man. Oh boy. And then number 2 is has the source company evolved past what you're showing me in this aspirational model? And then what is the original author's current position on its effectiveness? And also I would say what is the original author's current position? Because again, all the people who wrote this paper, like some of them stayed at Spotify for a little while, but I think they're both gone from Spotify. Some of them faster than others. So, if you write a paper and say like, wow, my company is so inspirational and do whatever, and then you're gone like 18 months later.
Yeah, what does that say?
Does that say something? I think it does. I don't know.
It certainly does. Also, but those people did pretty well for themselves even after they left.
Yeah. Well, speaking of following the money, which is our next category, before we go there, what do you think about this category? What do you think about my yelling at the clouds about Spotify? Let me know in the comments is what I'm asking. So if the org model didn't drive Spotify's success, what did drive Spotify's success in this era?
What a fantastic question, right? What drives the success of any up and coming company? Like what is the one thing they need? Oxygen? Money, right? Did Spotify land money at that time when they were about to grow?
I think it's the opposite. It's that Spotify had in a near, I'm going to say near infinite amount, but I mean they had a lot of rounds of funding from private equity and venture capital. They had a lot of funding,
billions.
So again, a lot of people will say, well, Spotify, and they were autonomy and they could like outperform their competitors with these great new features because they were so innovative, whatever. And I mean, maybe they were innovative. Maybe that is true. Again, this is Arguing Agile, so I'm picking a side and sticking to it. Unlike where I flip-flop in other podcasts, I'm sticking to my side in this podcast. Everybody wants to innovate like Spotify, but not everyone's getting seed rounds with $1 billion. From the notes I found between podcasts, through Spotify's investment rounds, they took about 12. Well, I think they took more than 12 funding rounds. They took a lot of more than 10 funding rounds, totaling more than $2 billion, including a 2016 $1 billion debt round alone. So money for Spotify was not a problem. And sure, you can have the greatest org design in the world when you don't have to worry about money. So there is that.
I'd just say that didn't hurt exactly, right? an org that was about to grow in that phase of the company.
The obvious pushback here, hey Brian, like money alone doesn't guarantee success, because there's lots of well-funded startups in Silicon Valley and wherever else that get tons of money and then they fold, right? And then the other one is it's their culture of autonomy and innovation and their hackathons and all the stuff that you read about Spotify. That's what led them to beat the market and create all these features that competitors couldn't match. That's what people will tell you that are defending the Spotify model.
Yeah, I mean, on the other side, you could say they were at the right time, at the right place, with the right investors. I mean, all the stars aligned for them.
Yeah, it's definitely the cheap money era, that 2008 to 2020 era. They were smack in the middle of that. I mean, they were in the best era for cheap money.
Right.
And they were doing something that not a lot of people were doing. They were trying to take over the music streaming market from everyone else, all the record companies, everybody else that kind of missed that technology. So it was market timing and first mover advantage together is definitely true. I mean, if there's something that I'm going to cede to the steel man, that I'm going to say, well, that is just true. It's the first mover advantage, the ability to get a bunch of funding and then target a thing and stay on it, no matter if you were profitable or not, and just burn this investor money until you just rose to the top of the market. But I mean, if that's the advantage that I'm going to be at, like I'm willing to try. Like, give me $2 billion. I'm willing to try.
Sure, exactly.
But so first mover advantage. So they absorbed the licensing costs that may have killed other competitors. That arguing point, I kind of would also push back against, though, because when Spotify started licensing everything, nobody was doing licensing of the online streaming and stuff like that. So they could set the first rate, and then they've been, if you look at the charts of how much the royalties that get paid out and the amounts that get paid out, they've been climbing over time, so that Spotify kind of got in early, set the rates real low, and have been kind of playing catch up and spending more and more and more as years have gone on. Number one. The other side of this is, like, money doesn't guarantee success. Sure, that's true. But are we talking to Scrappy underdog here? Because if that's the Spotify story, that story is like revisionist history. It's flatly false. They raised $2 billion. I don't know. Yeah. I'm taking a scrappy startup loan of $2 billion. It
would be nice, wouldn't it? $2 billion.
That seems like institutional level money. Institutional level money used to corner a market. And like, should that money just immediately go away? Like, I would argue, like, do you think that Spotify would stay at the top of the market where they are? Should that money, number one, had they not had that money, right? And number two, should that money not continue?
Great questions. No answers there. I mean, look, at the end of the day, if they didn't get the funding they needed, they probably wouldn't have been able to do what they did.
I will say I watched a lot of podcasts. I watched a lot of presentations there by some folks from Spotify who may or may not have been involved with the Spotify creation myth here. And I have a direct quote in the show planning. It says, and I quote, "We don't have any money compared to other companies." The implication was they had to be scrappy and segment our, with the Spotify model, and segment our teams for autonomy, because we had to be scrappy because we had no money. Completely false.
Completely false is right. I mean, they were flush with money.
I mean, the stories that coaches and product, I'm in product people are the worst for this, but like the revisionist stories, and also like tech folks are terrible at this too. If you watch any like Brian Chesky or anything like that, like the stories that, I was in the woods and I was taking a hike and I was like, head of my company. Well, we did the Brian Chesky, July 12th, 2023, Arguing Agile 120, did Airbnb fire their product managers? We watched the Brian Chesky video, and then we reacted to it and kind of talked about where he was like, I went on a hike and I realized that we were too slow and I had to go, take control, whatever. And then he invented founder mode after that or whatever. Basically, in the story, he like place himself as a victim of like, oh, we grew too much.
He didn't want to do it, but he had to do it.
I'm like, yeah, but you're the CEO, man.
Right.
You could literally do anything you want. So, like, the only person in charge of all this is you.
Yeah.
So, like, the problem with talking about Spotify is there's so much of this going on. There's so much of this kind of like, well, it was never, this, it was that kind of stuff going on. It's enraging to talk about. But the probably the thing that like gets under my skin the most about the Spotify model, like the hype around the Spotify model, is if you were to advise like an insurance company, or like a fintech started, like a bunch of fintech bros in a fintech company, like, oh, don't worry, you can innovate, like, you can corner the market like Spotify by using the Spotify model and innovating and adapting squads and tribes or whatever. It's like telling someone they can swim like Michael Phelps if they just buy the Michael Phelps goggles.
Yeah.
They'll be swimming like him in no time.
That's right. And unfortunately, I think the consultants are at fault for a lot of this, propagating the madness.
Yeah. There are some takeaways in this category. They're very quick because they're basically a recap of what we just talked about. And it goes something like this. Number one, like what is your capital? Number two, what is the timing? What's the market conditions, right? And number three, what's your positioning? I wrote competitive position here, but I really mean positioning. What is your name in the market? What are you associated with? What is your moat? There's a lot of companies out there right now in the AI era that like they're just waiting for Claude to realize what they're doing so they can bake it in the model or in a service or whatever, and they're done.
Yeah.
A lot of people that were using Claude Code as in pass-through mode in their application, that Claude Code, they just one day they did an update and shut it all down. Said, nope, you're not using Claude Code as like the core of your application anymore, and all those wrappers around Claude Code just like vanished overnight.
Gone. Yeah.
The capital, obviously, if you don't have funding, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to position yourself in the market without a bunch of funding? But positioning is another one. Like we could have a marketer on the podcast specifically to talk about positioning, because I think that's a great one that doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, I mean, just the corollary to all this is before implementing any sort of model like this, not just the Spotify one, reflect on the DNA of your organization. Does it allow for something like this to even, stick, or does it have a chance? Mm-hmm. Or do you have a culture where it's perhaps a matrix culture or matrix of matrices or whatever?
Yeah.
And you're trying to say, just devolve decision making and decentralize authority, things like that. That's not going to happen, or at least in a hurry. So just beware of that.
Right. Well, so what do you think about market timing and having an unlimited supply of money? You think that would help you get ahead in business? If you do, drop us a comment.
And send us some money.
Oh, didn't think about
just
that.
Just like and subscribe for now. That will do.
Well, we'll settle for that.
Yeah.
And some money. Anyway, that brings us to a bigger problem. Why do we keep studying the winners and assuming that it was, their methods or the hype that they try to sell us in models and whatever? We think that that's what caused their success.
Because we're suckers.
No. No.
Why we only study winners? That's what we're going to talk about. Yeah, why do we only study winners? That's the next segment.
All right. For every Spotify, there's 100 companies that tried to do music streaming or whatever and failed. Try to do the squads and tribes playbook and failed. I could go on all night, but I'm not going to, because we got places to be. We don't write case studies about the companies that failed and laud them of, how great it is that they tried a new thing and didn't survive as a company.
If we do even talk about these companies, it's in a negative light. This company failed, right? So not a lot gets written about the failed companies,
or
sadly,
or who didn't buy Netflix, a Blockbuster. Survivorship bias. That's what's really going on here. That's why everyone's looking at the Spotify model, saying like, maybe we should do the Spotify model. So there's a book out there, David McRaney, You Are Not So Smart. And there's a quote from the book. It says, "This business is a monopoly run by survivors. When something becomes a non-survivor, it's either completely eliminated or whatever voice it has gets muted to zero." So all the business practices about Blockbuster that actually were good,
nobody talks about.
We don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm using probably not the greatest example, because like Blockbuster is like very old school. But there are still like brick and mortar stores in existence. They found a way to, survive. And the steel man here, hey, like winners, worth talking about them and studying them and lauding them, right? And then failures are very noisy. They're not well documented. There is no one there trying to like keep documentation or extract lessons because they're failures. They've moved on, and also there's a little bit of culture here as a steel man too, is like, that's just not the culture, as business failure. We try to hide business failures.
That's right. Nobody evangelizes that.
Right.
Yeah.
The big thing left out of this, and also left out of the steel man one, is nobody's talking about the market timing. Nobody's talking about timing or, persistent application of funding over a period of time toward a specific goal. Like, that's what's missing out of the Spotify models. Hey, we did all the other things and we tried to organize like this, but we did all the other things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even if Spotify had succeeded, just imagine for a moment that they did, right? They implemented their model internally. Everything was great. And they're still using that model, let's say. Mm-hmm. Just because it worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because you don't have all the preconditions, right, that are present around you. Right. All of the environmental stuff as well as the financial, but market timing, how the hell are you going to ensure you're timing the market right?
You also don't have the positioning. You also don't have the
You don't have a lot of stuff.
Point taken. Culture is just one little piece, but all of the conditions not being in place, it'd be very difficult to copy this. I mean, maybe you copy principles, and that's about as nebulous as I can get here, as unhelpful as I can be here.
Yeah, I mean, so culture is a small piece, but it's sort of like saying culture is like the chessboard that you can play the game on, right? Without the chessboard, you can play the game. It ain't gonna mean a whole lot.
Well, also you can have an autonomous team that really loves what they're doing, but there's no funding, or the business doesn't want to fund. I've been there too. Is I have a successful product. There are people lined up to buy it, but the executives are saying, we don't want to be in that business. We want to transfer over. We think this other business will be more lucrative, and they move people from the development team slowly off of the business because they don't want to be in that business.
Yeah.
So the funding is a real thing too, and then Spotify has got a funding round of $1 billion. So they're like a real bad example for this. I've been at companies with like, $700,000 to move around for those companies usually will be like, well, let me get 10% of this developer's time, or you see like the Gantt chart of people's time, and people are assigned like 23% to this project, 15% to that project. One person is split across 6 different projects. Because the funding they're playing games with the funding. Whereas when you have $1 billion, you don't need to play games.
Right, right, absolutely. I think we've talked about this on some other podcast at least once. Those kinds of environments where you really are working on fumes and burning people out. You placate them by giving them stock options and this and that. But at the end of the day, they're going to realize sooner or later that this is just basically fantasy, and you'll lose good people. That's what it results in. And so you lose enough of those people, and then you have fewer people that will just say, yeah, sure, we'll work whatever hours you want. Yeah. And it just accelerates the demise of the company.
I think I've learned something today. I think I've learned that studying the Spotify model to learn about org design is like studying only lottery winners to learn about retirement planning. That's what I think I've learned today. My cheeky learnings, but I don't know if are there real takeaways from this.
I mean, I'll close us out on this one by just saying, look, if you think that model is what differentiates you, think about all the different companies that adopted the Spotify model, and they all failed. Mm-hmm. So was it really the model?
That's good. Sorry, I don't have anything to add. Like I have some takeaways here. I don't know if they're good. Like. No, I don't. No, they're not good. Sorry, I'm just reading them for the first time. So yeah, I mean, if I'm looking at the dead companies and looking like, well, what did their org design look like? This is also like why startups fail is in this category as well. Yeah. We don't look at the failed startups. And when I read the E-Myth Revisited, that was the book. I wanted to do a podcast about it. We never actually did the podcast because in the E-Myth Revisited, they posed that whatever, this big statistics of the number of startups that fail, whatever, 80% of startups. Like if you go over I think within their first couple of years, a good percentage, a good chunk of startups fail, like 2/3 or whatever. I don't know what the number is. But if you put that on a 10-year timeline, it goes to like 95% or something, like some ridiculous number.
Yeah.
Overwhelming failure rate. But franchisees, new businesses started with franchise models, they're 20% survivor, 80% failure for normal small businesses. The franchisees are the reverse of that. Yeah, they're flipped. And that's because they come online with well-documented and well-run procedures that are run in other businesses that are run successfully. And they grab those playbooks, and then they run those playbooks. So it's like part of it is like it's well-documented success paths that people are running with. And you have to wonder here, are people failing because they're trying to use the Spotify model, or are people failing here because they're running a bad business and the Spotify model is just like not going to help you with a bad business regardless? Like there's a lot.
Any model's not going to help you necessarily. Right. Yeah, so I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
It's less about the survivorship of the company Spotify that succeeded. Before we get out of this category, I wanted to run a quick Google search. And what I typed into Google was, when did Spotify become profitable? Google says Spotify registered its first profitable year in 2024.
So some 12 years after they became a company.
It's nice to talk about the survivorship bias, like the lens of survivorship bias, because as you can see, had they not had this bajillion dollars in funding, they'd have been dead in 2014, 2015,
if not sooner. Yeah, 3 years. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, what do you think about keeping a company on life support via, endless rounds of VC funding or PE funding? Let us know in the comments. And let us know if you have a round of funding for us. So now we're going to get into the weeds in the next category. So what specifically went wrong with the Spotify model where it wasn't actually implemented? Where am I at? We're going to talk about the 4 failures. All right. So matrix management solved the wrong problem. Autonomy without alignment created chaos. Collaboration was assumed, not taught. And cool sounding names created more confusion than it created clarity at Spotify. So from everything I read, these are the 4 categories I put together of the things that went wrong at Spotify. They're the 4 reasons why the Spotify model failed Spotify. So Joaquin Sundin.
He was an Agile coach there, I believe.
Yes, he was Agile coach 2011 to 2017. And at the Agile 2017 conference, he had a quote that said, "If I were to do one thing differently, I would say we should not be focusing so much on autonomy," which is a heck of a thing for an Agile coach to be saying at an Agile conference. There's a video, there's a whole video for that one. You can go watch it. We're not going to now. Again, the 3-hour version of this, we absolutely would go.
Sure.
I have quotes written down. I did way more prep than we're going to get to in this podcast, but trust me, it's in there. We have some quotes we'll talk about later, but I want to hit the Steelman real quick so I can get into these quotes. So the Steelman in this category, hey, every org model has its challenges, so don't yuck my yum. That's what's going to happen here. It doesn't mean the model's flawed, Brian. It just means you haven't done it right. That's
you're not trying hard enough.
That's right. You're not trying hard enough. You got it. 996. And then the other one would be autonomy at scale is genuinely difficult. You can scale autonomy, but it's very difficult, and everyone has a difficult time, and no one's been able to nail it. Right? Spotify is pioneering new territory. They're exploring new territory. So get out of my office, Brian. That would be the steel man. It's hard. What do you want?
It's hard, exactly. Well, good luck, right? If you've got unlimited money and it's your model, go for it. So all right, let's get into this.
Yeah, I got 4 points in this category. Number 1, matrix management created accountability vacuums. Apparently, at Spotify, like when people moved teams, they kept their manager, which created like this real spider web of like. It's not so much accountability. It's like if all the people on your team. If there's like 8 people on your team and they all have different managers in the organization, what a nightmare.
Oh, yeah. Any one of those managers could pull a person off your team anytime.
Not just that, but like, I worked for a lot of different managers over my career. Some of them were invested in my learning and development, stuff like that. Some of them barely even knew who I was. Some of the people on the team would feel supported. Some of the people on the team would feel like they're being thrown under the bus. Like, I can't even imagine, what is your organizational like learning and development like when the managers are not involved? Like, what a train wreck. So, and then forget about like typical HR stuff, pay raises, reviews. Forget about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all of these add up really quickly, right? To a culture that the team members don't really, find enthralling.
Yeah. I want to stop short of that just because, again, all these sources, like, they can live on their own. Like, but the point is there's no, like, one go-to mini CTO or, like, a domain lead. In theory, there are those people, but in actuality, it sounds very chaotic from all the blogs and articles and everything I read and the videos and watched. The other one that even Nyberg admits in his video, he has a 2022 video that I watched going into this. He says, in quote, Spotify was very good at autonomy, but also kind of went overboard. We had this really dumb problem. We weren't even using the same version control system, and it was really, really dumb.
So this goes to what are the other systems in your organization, right? It's not just implementing new names for old practices, right?
Yeah.
What are all these other things? If you're not even using a version control system, then no amount of autonomy is going to help you, right? You're still going to have the chaos that ensues from that.
Well, theoretically, the squad, tribe, whatever, I don't, the X, Y, XS, I don't know what it is, but theoretically, like each of those should have had a chapter lead or a squad lead or whatever they have in the model that obviously they never implemented. And there would be some kind of technological borders around that those people own. But I guess it was just it was like an aspirational that maybe one day we will have leads rather than we wrote the model and then we went and declared it. So it seems like there was a difference between the people designing the organizational structure were not the people with the actual authority to say, now these people are in charge of this thing. And then, like, you have a very normal disconnect that I remember experiencing. When I was like deep in business agility, that part of my career is usually the people that have the biggest, boldest ideas of how we could change the org. They're not empowered to change the org, and you got a real problem. It sounds like that's the problem exactly at play here.
It's pervasive in most matrix organizations. I would venture to say.
And then. The jargon. We're not going to get out of this category, the four failures, without talking about the jargon, like the squads, guilds, chapters, tribes, whatever. Like, everyone's got to learn this vocabulary, and it's meaningless to the business people who just come from other businesses. And it's like, who's your manager? And we're like, well, we don't have managers. We have tribes. And it's, well, what are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. It's an overhead on most teams, even on teams that came from backgrounds of working in agile ways, right? To have to learn this way of working. And it isn't just the language, I want to say. The Spotify model also has the way they organize these things differently, right? So you organize squads, guilds, chapters, and tribes differently than you would in a typical kind of agile structure.
I don't know how I deal with that. I mean, like, I would think that calling your teams squads or tribes or whatever, like, changing the language doesn't necessarily make, like, changing the language doesn't necessarily make you autonomous or help, like, delegate authority to where the authority needs to be. It just makes Slack channels harder to search and find. It
does, but the flip side of that is, it's pretty snazzy for recruitment and getting people on board and say, look what we've got. We don't have teams, we have squads. Yeah, come join us.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anyhow, so some takeaways about when delegating authority, because that's what it should be. It should be delegating authority. Like, hey, this team and everyone that interacts with the team uses these channels or whatever you decide. Your team and teams that you interact with decide how you're gonna work. But some things are not delegated, like the change control system. Like, why would that be delegated to the team? Unless you're going to say, like, well, there's nobody really, like, in charge of technology, nobody in the driver's seat of technology and or processes.
Organization-wide, yeah.
Alignment, accountability, and ability are my three kind of key things to look at here before I'm, like, making these decisions. Is, alignment is, are there strategic guardrails that we need? What's non-negotiable? Obviously, change control.
Right.
Non-negotiable. One would think it would be non-negotiable. And then obviously, accountability is straightforward. Accountability, who is responsible for what?
Yeah,
is really, that's all that is. And then the ability, it seems obvious to me. Maybe it's not obvious to everyone else, but, like, who technically can perform the work?
Yeah, because set up for success.
You want someone with all three of these. This is what we charge product management. We charge the product managers to be responsible for a segment of the business we give them these three things. We give them business alignment and product management. We'll talk all day about aligning. And then they're the accountability. The business goes to them and nobody else when they want to talk about the roadmap for a product or whatever. And then we assume they have the ability to do it. I don't, but we assume they do.
So this is the 3 A's framework brought to you by AA.
Oh,
not Alcoholics Anonymous.
Hey, if you need a drink, let us know in the comments, and also let us know, if you have strong feelings about this.
What would you add to the framework here, right?
Yeah. Well, the next step from here is to talk about the last piece of the story we haven't talked about today, and it's about who actually pays the price for Spotify's successes.
This is actually, in this particular case, very interesting.
So,
right?
Yeah,
we know who paid the dues to make them grow at the time when they were about to. It's the investors, but now this is the other side. The hidden cost. Who's paying the cost?
Well, we're over here debating org charts, and Spotify is like raking in the billions from investors and PE firms and everyone that wants a part of. They want to be included in the king of streaming. The single point of failure clearinghouse for all online streaming. Well, everyone's kind of stepping over themselves, throwing money at Spotify. Spotify is over here building a business that pays artists 0.0003 cents per stream. And then flooding the zone basically with AI-generated ghost artists and content that they produce, and investing in other questionable investments. Like you can go see what Spotify you can go see what Spotify is investing in.
It's nothing to do with streaming.
Nothing to do with streaming. Maybe we should ask: do we really want to hold up this company as the shining beacon that we should copy? I don't know. Spotify could have done a lot to pave the way for fair royalties, like a fair and robust mechanism of royalties, like a modern era royalty type of situation. And since they're such a major player with so much investment, right? So they're not going to fail because they have all this money and everyone believes. Basically, all the investors believe in them. They could have done a lot ethically to say, hey, nobody can break into this market unless they come up to this bar ethically that we've set. Trying to say
reasonable bar
to set a positive, to be a positive influence for individual artists and basically all the people that the music that they're taking and using to become profitable in whatever we say 2024. What it was, the steps that they stepped up to reach profitability along the way. They could have done a lot to pave the road for others that follow them,
but they didn't.
But that's not how we make money.
That's right, exactly. They could have been the fair trade coffee grower, to use that analogy.
Yeah,
but they didn't.
Yeah,
the question you asked earlier is, now that you know about this company a little more, and again, we're not disparaging the company. We're just saying companies like this, or any company, look around to see exactly which business they're in, where they're investing, how they're making money, and then ask yourself the question: is this the company we want to emulate?
Right. So right away, the steelman to this says, but they've paid out $10 billion to rights holders, and that's a lot of money when taken, in the enormity of the money they paid out. That's a lot of money. And then the other would be to say, well, the music industry's economics, that's not a fault of Spotify. If it wasn't for Spotify creating an alternate mechanism that people would pay for, which by the way they weren't even the first. So this is a terrible point, but I'm gonna make it anyway because it is a good point on some level to say they're just responding to the market. It's the Nuremberg defense of MP3 streaming. No, sorry, it's not. It's
sorry,
not.
Napster.
It's they're going to say Napster drove music to zero, the cost of streaming music online to zero. Yeah. And then Apple showed that it is a viable business, but Apple never scaled it to this point. So really, what Spotify did is they took a business model that was shown to be profitable, and they scaled it, and then it took them 12 years
to make money.
Money, by scaling it, but they did figure it out in the end. That's the Steelman, which is honestly, I'd say out of all the Steelman and everything,
that's probably a solid.
It's probably the solid one today.
Yeah,
and the $10 billion. I mean, it sounds very impressive until you actually look at the real numbers under hood of the amount of songs streamed, and you realize they're paying the artists per stream. They pay the artists for 1 million streams. They pay them between 0.003 to 0.005 cents per stream. Now, what I don't have is I don't have the numbers on the other side of that to understand what Spotify's revenue is per stream. That's where the Steelman here really holds up to me. Is I don't know, like, does Spotify get $3 and the artist gets 0.003 cents? Is that what the trade-off is? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a bit of information that really is lacking. I don't know if that's available.
So I found one source that says Spotify pays 70%, a 70-30 split, where they give 70% to the artist and they retain 30%. But again, I found one source that says that like what they pay the artist is actually like a 70-30 split, so it's actually more fair. So I don't know, the jury's out on this one. I would not bank my case on just this thing, but boy, that's very little.
It's very low, and the second point, the second Steelman point.
Yeah. By the way, if you don't crack that 1,000 stream threshold, like this is like the cost per mil, the CPM. The advertisers do this too. You have to have 1,000 to get paid.
Yeah.
Spotify does this too. So if you put up tracks, they don't get 1,000, you get nothing.
Yeah, they do.
Oh yeah. Funny story about that.
Oh yes. So I mean, you really have to be in it for long enough to exceed the threshold before you even start seeing that big mother load of 0.003 cents per stream.
And then like back in the day, like the record companies and whatnot, they used to pay radio stations to play songs.
Yeah.
There'd be money under the table, not really under the table, but like it wasn't necessarily the business model, but it was accepted as this stuff happens.
Right.
I got to think that there's some like under hood with Spotify. There's something about like the way they push songs or podcasts or whatever. They have to have some like corporate deals like this. Not necessarily sponsorship, but some sort of like business to business stream of revenue that says like, hey, we want to pump this artist this month or whatever. And they have to have some kind of B2B side of their business.
Yeah, and if it's not explicit like that, it's probably because they feel like pushing specific artists is good for them for future revenue, perhaps, right?
But also that 3 to 5, like that 0.003 to 0.005 per stream, it doesn't sound like a big range, but that's a big range. Like it'd be anything in the middle of that range. And also, this is just like the numbers I found on the internet.
Yeah.
So this might not even be accurate. I mean,
we can only go with what's available, right?
I can't verify this.
Yeah.
So maybe it's more, maybe it's less. But like, who determines if you get more or less in this?
Yeah, that's leading straight into that second Steelman point, right? The music industry is what it is. It's not our fault, right? But you know what? Being in the situation they were in, a leading aggregator at the right time, they could have been a trendsetter. And they could have done, like you said earlier, right? They could have done right by the artists such that you get more artists wanting to, use the platform, right, for the distribution purpose. And I don't think that happened.
Well, I mean, anybody under 1,000 plays or 1,000 streams or whatever.
Well, they're just donating.
Yeah. The argument here would be like you're only hurting the more independent folks that don't have like big companies backing them, and anyway, I'm not really like here to critique the music industry, but that's the real Spotify model from my perspective is underpaying individual creators and overpaying large companies, because that's probably who lobbies to get the bigger rates is the large companies.
Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it leads to a very like read the fine print type of culture that it's just nasty in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. So that's just like your opinion, man. So if there is a takeaway here, I don't know if it's I don't know if there'll be much of a takeaway here, but I put down here the shareholder stress test.
Ooh.
Who benefits most from this company's success? Shareholders, customers, employees, other companies. Who does? Who bears? And then number two, who bears the hidden costs? So in Spotify's case, the smallest of creators bear the hidden costs here, because they're also the ones that are going to get displaced and drowned out by AI. I don't know if you ever did you hear about this company that's pumping out podcasts? They pump out like hundreds of podcasts per day. Have you heard about this?
You told me about it one time, but I forget the name of it.
So an AI podcasting machine is churning out. So I'm looking at an article now from November 17th, 2025 by Tess Patton. It's thewrap.com. And the article title is an AI podcast machine is churning out 3,000 episodes a week, and people are listening. On track for 150,000 episodes by the end of 2025. Inception Point AI's Quiet Please. That's what it was. Quiet Please podcast network values quantity over quality. So yeah, there are at least 175,000 AI-generated podcast episodes on platforms like Spotify and Apple. So, like I said, the individual creators, of which we are, completely drowned out by this.
In terms of volume, but not value.
I mean, again, when you go searching for something and we get buried under thousands of results of AI generated garbage,
Yep.
What is Spotify doing to help us? Like that goes back to they could have set themselves up to be like, here's the things that we're doing that are going to help you, Brian and Ohm. But, in reality, they're like, who are you? Get out of my office.
One of the takeaways here is, when you're studying a company's org model, study their ethics as well, because culture indicates how you treat stakeholders. And then,
the other one that we haven't talked about is, hey, are you proud of the way your company does business and treats people? Just how about that one? I don't expect people in this kind of business to be doing a lot of quiet introspection about am I hurting or whatever the larger community
No,
I just don't expect it. So
yeah.
I don't know. This category is depressing. Money machine go burr. That's it's so somebody in the comments, please cheer me up and let us know what you think about Spotify and their business practices. And hey, if it's just free market, Brian, get off your high horse over here. Let me yell at me. That's what I'm saying in the comments.
Yeah, and while you're in the comments, please like and subscribe.
So we talked about a lot of stuff on the podcast today. Let's do a quick review here. So we promised that we talk about why the Spotify model never actually worked as Spotify. And I think we did that. It was a part ambition, part approximation, part marketing. And it's none of those parts were functioning.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, man. This, for a little less talk and a lot more action is what I'm asking for. And then we talked about what actually drove Spotify's success.
Hey, hint. It might have been the money. Just saying.
$2 billion is, it helps. Give me $2 billion. I guarantee you success.
That's right. Of some kind.
Can I have some money? And then number three, we talked a little bit about spotting survivorship bias. We probably didn't talk enough about how to spot survivorship bias and to recognize the signs that someone seems afraid of talking about failures and is hiding failures and is only talking about winners. This might not be the best advice in the world here.
Right.
We probably could do a whole podcast on that.
We should actually do that.
And then we had a lot of and then number four, the real cost of lift and shift thinking, of thinking that that was the four failures that we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the last one was all the hidden costs of what's it going to do? What's it going to do to second and third order effects?
Are you going to be a good corporate citizen? Exactly.
That's a very philosophical discussion that, again, we're not qualified to make predictions about the future of the music industry and what it's going to do to individual artists, but I can guess.
Yeah, sadly. So on that depressing note,
well, it's closing time, but before we close, I'm going to need y'all to like and subscribe to the podcast. That's what I'm asking, because every like pays in no money, but we like it. It's fun.
It gives them good vibes.
Good vibes. It pays me in good vibes.
That's a wrap, folks.